Hi, Ann. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Great. Thank you for taking the time. Aside from having to talk to media scum, is your day going fine so far?
Media's come. Please. My day is going great. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. So, leading right into it with the compliments here, I had the pleasure of seeing one of your shows in New York City at City Winery a couple weeks ago. That was my first
Oh,
indoor
yeah.
post quarantine show, and I was blown away. Going into it, I said, I don't know what she's going to play. I don't know if there's going to be a band, but let's go. And
Yeah.
wow. Was that a fun show to play? Was that a nerve wracking show to be in such an intimate space?
Actually, no, it was not nerve wracking. It was really fun. And the band and myself, the we call them the Amazing Dogs. We're so new together now that it's really in the honeymoon phase. And like anytime we can get up on stage together and fire up, we just really have a blast. And I'm pretty thrilled and honored to be playing with these guys because they're all pretty heavy hitters in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
except for the drummer who's from Seattle, and he's a heavy hitter up there. So I feel that I'm really getting to level up with these guys, and it's great. It's really great for me.
Yeah, the drummer had to pull off the "Won't Get Fooled Again" drum solo, which speaks volumes that oh, great drummer. And
Right.
people were saying, so what did Anne play live? And I was saying, well, it was like one third material from the new release. It was one third heart songs from the 70s, and it was one third covers. And that was such
Yeah.
a refreshing set list to say the least. Did you plan the set list before you got on tour like that? In other words, do you do pre-production in a big way for your tours, or is it kind of like you start rehearsals and you start talking?
We got together and rehearsed for a few days before the whole thing started. And how we did it was we just had a big pile of songs and we didn't really organize them. We just learned them all. And then there's some things that we just like the Aerosmith song "Dream On." We didn't know we were going to do until we just started fooling around with it. Somebody accidentally played one of the parts, and we went, "Wow, we should do it." Um, then once we got actually up on stages, we felt the order. We just felt which song should come next and which song to, and because we want to go up there and have an experience with the audience. We don't want to just get up there and command their attention. Like, we want to be interactive with them. So that's how we got the song list together. It's just by feeling their reaction, and they would fire us up and we'd fire them up and back and forth.
That set list also included a great Jeff Buckley cover. Did you get to see Jeff Buckley live when he was with us?
Oh, I never did. I've only seen him on YouTube live, and I've heard, of course, his album. And yeah, that song "Forget Her" it's really one of my favorites. So heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of his songs were heartbreaking for different reasons. It was kind of funny in a way with him, and I correlate this to you as well, where the music is super serious, but you hear the person talk for a while, and you hear jokes, and the person lives a whole life. Like, Jeff Buckley doesn't seem like he could have been serious for 30 seconds in any of the interviews I saw.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, funny people often do dark music and vice versa. But the fact that you were so well aware of Jeff Buckley, were you always hanging out in record stores and off days on the tour?
Yeah, back when record stores were still a thing,
Yeah.
you'd find me in there all the time. um, and even when I was a little kid, before there was a YouTube and there was a internet streaming thing, you still had to go buy a record and find the money to buy it and then play it. I mean, yeah, I've always been a real big music fan.
Because you never know. In the case of, say, take somebody like Neil Diamond, I've read interviews with him where he says he doesn't listen to any music except his own, which is a very unique response. And I find that sometimes iconic vocalists go, no, I don't want to hear what anyone else is doing. It might get involved in what I'm doing.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, I think that it's true that music feeds on its predecessors. And like, Paul McCartney learned off of Little Richard, and Little Richard learned off of somebody else. And it just goes forward and, you know, feeds itself as it evolves forward.
Yeah.
That's just how music is,
So
and art too.
So in your case, I'm glad to have learned that you've always been checking out new music. I think I would argue it's either you or Eddie Van Halen who was the first person to really publicly embrace Alice in Chains.
Oh, Alice, yeah. Yeah, well they're like brothers really, because we came from the same small city, and when they were having their first big success in the Seattle music scene, I guess I was one of their I let them use my house to party in and hang out. And when they had when they were all worried and scared and stuff, I'd be the older woman who could go, "Oh no, honey, it's all right." It's
Yeah, the Seattle music scene always intrigues me because people quickly, if they're not talking about Hart and Jimi Hendrix, then they rush to grunge. And of course, they say, the big 4 or 5, and they say Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, that kind of thing. But there were so many other artists that came from Seattle. And for example, Candlebox was huge, and they're not usually lumped in with all that. Sir Mix-a-Lot was huge. The presidents of the United States of America were huge. Were you around all of these people at different points?
Yeah, most of them. I mean, it's a small city, and the music scene in those years was pretty incestuous. I mean, everybody knew everybody. Everybody jammed on each other's stages. Clubs became just like crossroads for everyone to meet each other in. There was a club called Rock Candy where it was just everybody was there, and very, very cool scene.
Were you still living in Seattle when grunge hit and became a mainstream thing?
Oh yeah. I didn't move out of Seattle until about 3 years ago. I had a house up on Capitol Hill where I lived for 35 years or something, and it was on Capitol Hill, which is like the kind of the bullseye of the grunge scene. And my house became sort of like a ground zero for people to come and hang out and swim in the pool and drink beer and smoke ciggies and put their cars in the in the ditch right outside my house after a party. So yeah, it was really
that actually
really
reminds me in a way, seeing you live at City Winery, your voice is still in top form. How much of that is genetic, luck versus actually taking care of yourself?
Well, I think that there's no luck involved. I think that if you're going to keep your voice for 40 or 50 years, and when you're screaming rock at the top of your lungs, it's got to have something to do with taking care of it. And I just drink a lot of water, and I don't scream, I don't smoke, things like that.
What was the set break that you put in the middle of the City Winery show? Is that part of voice preservation, giving yourself a little rest?
Not really. It was more just like a natural break in the show for people to get up and go get a drink or whatever, go to the restroom, come back all refreshed. And
got it. So something I mentioned before, maybe I was thinking a little too much into that one. Oh, vocal warm downs. No, nothing like that.
Yeah.
You played like 4 or 5 new, but possibly old songs during that gig. Is there a lot of unreleased material for you?
Yes, there is. Like so many people during quarantine, I busted out a bunch of new songs, and they don't all fit into a live show, but the ones that do, it was really great to get to play them, like Black Wing and Greed, those two.
Right. And in your case, I would argue you were one of the first high profile artists to have their own studio, to buy a proper studio that wasn't just, in a basement, which you had throughout
Right.
the 90s. How did you
Mhm.
know so early to get into the owning your own studio business?
Well, Hart had been recording albums since 1975.
Mhm.
And we there was no studio in Seattle. It was state of the art at that time. So because we had been taking Hart to San Francisco and New York and LA to use those big studios there, and we got sick of being out of town and having to lease houses for a year and stuff. So we studio in Seattle and named it Bad Animals, and the main room was called Studio X. And of course, Nancy and I went through with a woman's eye because we wanted there to be a good bathroom with showers and nice towels and, a place to lie down, because you spend so much time in the studio just waiting around. So it had all the amenities. It was really nice for its day. And it just only recently, within the last year, has been knocked down because of the whole Seattle thing is just changing landscape. That part of the city has just been sort of leveled for condos.
Yeah.
For the Amazon world.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be kind of cool and heartbreaking at the same time, to know that you came from this city that became the epicenter of tech, which all these people wanted to move to, but in the process destroyed all the art.
Yeah, people who've lived in Seattle for a long time are just wringing their hands because the charm of the city is slowly but surely being diluted. And that's change. Everything always changes, and there's no real use in hanging around going, oh no, we don't have the old Ivar's fish house anymore. No, because now we have tech. But it is what it is, as they say.
So you mentioned on stage living in Florida, and one thing I was trying to figure out: cheap members of Cheap Trick and AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, everyone moved to Florida. Are there secret jam sessions and jam nights for all the hard rock legends? And you don't have to tell me where they are if there are.
Right. Well, if there are, I have not discovered them yet because, we just moved here because we were looking. My husband and I are both from Seattle, and we got to a point in our lives where we just couldn't take the weather anymore. It's just 9 months out of the year, it's just drab and drizzle and dreary, and we wanted to find some place with great weather. And so we moved to North Florida. It's great here. I mean, there's maybe 2 months out of the year where it's so hot you don't want to go outside, but the rest of the time it's just beautiful. I have not encountered Def Leppard or any of the guys. I think the Bee Gees live down there too. They mostly live like in South Florida, like we're living way up north. So this is kind of Lynyrd Skynyrd country, and
Have you become a Jaguars fan? You renounce the Seahawks as a result?
I will never renounce the Seahawks. No, I have not. But I'm not really a sports-oriented person. But I like the natural beauty here. I mean, they don't call it Florida for nothing. I mean, it's just gorgeous. The way things grow and all the wildlife and stuff, I can really relate to that.
Good to know. Being a New Yorker, you're used to seeing more than half the people in your life move to Florida inevitably. So.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
So back to the compliments here. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you. You're one of the few artists where if you play 18 songs in concert, all 18 of those were charting singles, and you still had to leave out about 10 singles. There's just so much of that going on. So that said, what is there still to accomplish at this point in your career? Is there anything you haven't yet done that you're still hoping you might?
Well, I don't see my career as a series of achievements. I see it as an ongoing evolution for myself as an artist, and just the simple fact of me getting to play with the Amazing Dogs is really great right now. I feel really good about that. Just things like that. I want to keep pushing the envelope and coming up with new stuff that's different and better. And things like awards and achievements are great when they come, but they're not the reason. They're not the golden carrot,
So it sounds like you're regularly writing. You're not the kind of person that goes, okay, we got an album to start in 3 months. We need 12 songs, start writing. You're rather writing all the time.
Yeah, I try to. I don't always succeed in writing all the time. There are just times when I don't feel anything coming, but there are times when I do. And it comes from the strangest places, the most unusual, just like the song Blackwing just came out looking out the window. Same with Dog and Butterfly, just looking out the window and seeing something happen. And then sometimes I can sit and I can just try and pull something out of my brain and I can't do it, It has to come naturally.
Do you ever write when you're playing the flute, or is that kind of an afterthought, the last thing that's contributed to the song?
The flute's kind of like a natural appendage for me because I've been playing it since I was like in 4th grade. So I see it sort of just like a solo instrument, like another head that's growing on my shoulder. But I don't write for the flute.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just thought it was natural for Blackwing because it's such a bird-like voice. So I just thought, yeah, this is good. The Blackwing sails off over the river and you can hear it singing, and that's the.
Yeah, you brought it out for a few songs at City Winery, and it was excellent to see you riffing, not just like playing a basic part, but actually soloing as well. The only other person in rock I can think of doing that is Ian Anderson. But what made you incorporate the flute into Heart in the first place? Because I can't imagine there was a lot of people going, what this band needs? It's that.
Right. Yeah. No, certainly not. Nobody ever said that to me. I think in the real early days, before I even joined Heart, I would just have it with me. And, those were different days. Those were sort of almost like hippie days. And so you could walk through the forest and just play your flute for yourself, And so the flute came with me when I joined the band. And and also Jethro Tull was huge back then. So, Aqualung was out and I was trying to learn how to play the flute part on Locomotive Breath and stuff like that. So there were a few songs that it just felt natural in the early Heart days, like Sing Child Sing and all that. Love Alive. It's just been a natural for me.
Did you start off on piano before flute though?
I started off with trumpet.
Wow.
But I was so young, I was in 4th grade and I wanted to play the trumpet and I had braces, right? So it was cutting up my lip and all this kind of stuff. And my parents just went, honey, come on. You might want to consider a different instrument that's maybe a little bit gentle for you, at least while you have all the wire in your mouth. And so I started playing the flute and I just never put it down. Wow.
Well, I have 3 quick questions for you and then you're free if that's fine with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Whatever you need.
Thank you, Anne. The first one is, you covered a lot of ground in your memoir, which came out, I believe, about a decade ago. Do you have any plans to write a second book? And was it enjoyable to write a book like that?
It was really heavy to write a book like that. I collaborated with this writer named Charles Cross, who is from Seattle and who writes for Stone, and I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah, he wrote the definitive Kurt Cobain book.
He did, Heavier Than Heaven. Yeah, and that's why I contacted him, because I'd read Heavier Than Heaven and I'd read his book about Jimi Hendrix and the one about Led Zeppelin, and I thought, if anybody can get this rock story straight, it's Charlie. And he was at the epicenter of the Seattle music scene in the 90s. And so, yeah, we worked with him, and I just did hours and hours, months of interviews with him. And he actually compiled it. But the interviews were incredibly intense and heavy and emotional because, you know, go back over your life chronologically and try to be honest, you know, about what you felt and what happened. And you're not going to come out of it emotionally unscathed, I don't think. It was heavy. And yes, I do intend to write another book. There's got to be I think that the Kicking and Dreaming book left off in the 90s, right? Or in the early 2000s or something. So yeah, there's a whole nother 20 years to cover.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Another thing that's come up in a lot of things recently, they keep quoting you about you and your sister hanging out with the Van Halen brothers and how it was all cool and all that. But did you have a lot of time or any time in general with David Lee Roth, or is it just with the Van Halens?
I never have. David wasn't around. I don't know if he was still in the band at that point or not. I think he was, but he didn't hang out. It was just Alex and you know, what's his name?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the last thing, this is a rumor that I don't remember where I read this, but someone said that Cameron Diaz's favorite band is Heart and that she's been to over 100 Heart concerts. Is that true?
Wow. I hadn't heard that one. 100 Heart shows and actress. I haven't heard anything about that. I can't comment because I don't want to, you know, just talk about something I don't know is true, you know.
Well, I'll go back on Google and see if that's true. And then the last thing, actually, do you have a TV recommendation you could pass along to someone who needs a new show to start? Because some of us are still holed up and indoors much more than we should be.
A TV recommendation, yeah. Billions. There were two shows that are big hits in this house, and one of them is Billions, and another one was Succession, which kind of shut down during COVID, but they keep saying it's going to come back. I'm almost done with Greenleaf, which has been interesting, a little bit lower level, more basic, but Billions, I think, is great, you know.
So you not only have great taste in music, but television as well. So Anne, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to your next show in New York, whether it's Jones Beach, a club gig, whatever it is. Thank you for being you.
Well, thank you for talking.
Paltrocast.